Love the music.
Thing. It's doing the thing. It's starting.
Tim, I want you to say you're good to go because I have the volume up for the live stream, so I can tell if you're on there or not. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the SVT Podcast.
What's up, guys?
How's it
going? Happy Monday.
It got our early audio of us talking before the show, so everyone gets to have that fun little snippet.
There you go.
Guys, again, you're listening to the SVT Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell to get alerts when we go live. Also, if you don't have time to listen to the full episode, we are putting up several segments on YouTube throughout the week. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at SVT Pod. Slide into our DMs. We would love to interact with all you beautiful people. Somebody changed my intro onto that, and I've rolled with it, baby. That was smooth as butter. I don't know who changed that, but I appreciate whoever did that. Sam, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. It's just a race to the bottom for me. Like, the Raiders are sitting second in Latin to get the number one pick. We're in second. But as you can tell by my hat, this is a Barracuda hat, but I'm still excited for the San Jose Sharks. So that's really been the Sharks and the Warriors have been the two funnest things to watch as a sports fan in the Bay Area right now. Has been Sharks and Warriors.
I agree, man. I agree. We're gonna jump into some early sports here. We're changing a little bit of an order here while everyone's trying to file in and get their butts in the seat here. So, Tim, if you don't mind, jump us in here to the NWSL playoffs. The Orlando versus Washington had their championship game in Kansas, which is pretty cool because Kansas has its own stadium built for soccer. So it's pretty unique to see that. And also the women get to play there alongside the men as well, too. Barbara Banda beats the goalkeeper near side for the game's lone goal. And Orlando Pride becomes your NWSL champs. So next year, Bay FC has a shot at this, but it ain't this year. I'll tell you that. So we're going to have to wait on the offseason, see what moves happen, and we'll pick it up next season here. So if you don't mind, we're going to jump across the globe here. We're going to kick it to the Wrexham team here, if you don't mind here, Tim. Wrexham, 3-0 against Exeter City. All right. Wow. It's a blowout win, and it doesn't seem like a blowout, but in soccer, that's a blowout win against the best defensive team in the league. Can't be much more excited than that. Max Cleworth gets a goal. Ollie Palmer gets a goal. It's wonderful to see. What's more wonderful about that is that they did show up against the best defensive team, and it slid them into second spot here in the EFL here. So they are currently 9-4-3 with 28 points, sitting second place behind Tom Brady's team, which annoys me that he partly owns that team, but that's fine. Next match is tomorrow.
Let me tell you about the annoying things that Tom Brady owns.
We'll get there, buddy. Next match is on Tuesday against Lincoln City. We pick up our regularly scheduled season matches there since they pretty much lost all of their tournament games. So all they have is regular matches to go, which is fine. Just get to the championship league, and we're talking, and then we can start knocking down the door of the Premier League. And that's when, if they, what's crazy to me, dude, Sam, is that there has never been in European football a team that's moved up 3 times consecutively. To do this, it's going to be a movie. Somewhere down the road, it's going to be a movie.
It's already a documentary. Next is the movie, and then the TV series, the reenacted series.
Yeah.
No, I mean, from afar, I'm not tapped into soccer as you guys are. I cheer for Wrexham because, if anybody has watched the podcast before, the similarities of Wrexham not having ownership that gave a shit about winning, just like the A's owner. What time is it? Fuck John Fisher.
Oh yeah. Fuck John Fisher. I forgot.
A little early. That train's ahead of schedule for once. So I definitely root for him, and I checked out a couple episodes of the documentary Welcome to Wrexham. And it's incredible that ownership, and we know who the ownership is, celebrities, but it's extremely impressive that they came together, they valued winning, and just put the franchise back on track. And I think last season we talked about it a lot. You talked about it a lot. You covered it. Um, People were just kind of content if you were just competitive because it felt like you were a couple years ahead because of the financials. You didn't have the money to go out and get a bunch of young talent or pay top tier talent. But here you are.
Sure.
You're on the cusp of being promoted once more. And on top of that, there's all this stadium stuff, right? They're trying to expand the stadium. And so the
Yeah.
ownership group is really making the investment to improve not just the team, but the foundation of the team, which is the stadium, the revenue, and everything that goes around with it, that comes with it, to build a successful franchise. Because at some point, you got to figure these guys are going to sell the team or not be as involved in the day-to-day operations. So maybe a team president would take over more of that control. But they're trying to get the franchise in the right spot to continue to be successful. I think as a fan, that's all you can ask for. So, I'm not a diehard Wrexham, but they're definitely become our team because of the similarities, and I'm definitely rooting for them. And I'm definitely excited to see that they get promoted again because I've never heard of it. And talking to you and Vince, it's
Never happened.
so how exciting is that? I'm juiced for it. And I'm really excited for the Wrexham fans that are the diehards that have gone through terrible ownership and stuck in the lowest of leagues. And it's great to see this franchise kind of, be revitalized.
Yeah. Well, speaking of culture and going through the hard times here, I think it's time to rip off this band-aid here. And Tim, let's go ahead and get these NFL scores, and I'll run down the list here real quick.
Mm.
So we talked before this podcast, okay, and we said, you know what? How many folks are here listening to get the rundown of every single score, unless it's a game that we thought has to be talked about, absolutely has to be talked
Right.
about. And I thought, you know what? You're right. It doesn't matter unless you folks would like to chime in and say, I want to hear all the scores. And guess what? I'll give you all the scores. But this week, I'm going to give you the scores that matter. All right. I'm going to tell you right now that the 49ers got their asses literally kicked up and down in that factory warehouse that they call the Green Bay Packers Stadium, 38-10. And it wasn't even close. Nothing about it was close. I don't know if the writing's on the wall for 49ers fans to call it off this year. You're still in the division. You still got a fighting chance. But in your opinion, Sam, I mean, does it seem like you're fighting uphill at this point, right?
Yeah, I think the division is definitely better. I mean, in Vince's words, he went full Oracle with calling on Arizona to be kind of a dark horse team that could be sneaky good. They were really competitive last year. They've been extremely competitive, obviously, throughout the season. Kyler Murray has shown that he can be kind of a hot, cold player in the right offense. And they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., who you knew he was going to be a stud. I mean, you knew he was a legit number one. So you go and get a number one, and it kind of puts the rest of the wide receiving core. You got McBride, tight end, who's a very good underrated tight end. You hear about the Kelsey and the Kittles, and now you hear about the Raiders Bowers being a high rate, a high draft pick and guy who kind of fell. You don't hear that much about McBride, who's really good.
I agree.
So, and then defensively, right? The Arizona Cardinals hired your neck of the woods, former defensive coordinator Gannon, and they're starting to fix that defense a little bit. It's not exactly where it needs to be, but they're a really good football team. They
compete day in, day out.
And they absolutely compete. So how I'm looking at it, for the 49ers to go from last back to first, is there a puncher's chance? Yeah, there's a chance. I don't see it. I don't see it. You got to have health on your side the rest of the way. Brock Purdy's been out this week. You got injuries left and right. And even when you've been healthy, the lines, offense and defensive lines, are not as good as they've been in the past. And we've talked about it a lot, especially on the defensive side. The 49ers front seven is just not the same. Bosa's not really affecting the game like he has in the past. And I stand by what I said a couple weeks ago. I could really see Bosa and Deebo Samuel as the scapegoats because their contracts are so, I don't want to say overvalued, but they're so inflated, right or wrong. You know, they're big contracts. And how are you going to be able to make all of these pieces fit with the quarterback? Because somewhere Brock Purdy's getting paid. You're going to pay him. So that there's money there. But how are you going to fix the offensive line? How are you going to fix the defensive line? How are you going to add all these pieces? And then what's going on with Brandon Ayuk? You know, the injury, things like that. So you got a lot of money everywhere. You know, and ownership, the 49ers ownership and front office, they went and traded for pieces at the deadline. In the 49ers defense, I don't really know if there was a move out there for them to put them back into contention. I think there's some background pieces that you could have done, but the 49ers have gone all in year after year after year. And to me, this is a coaching and execution. I don't think the players are executing like they're capable of and that they've shown in the past. And coaching, right? It just seems like whatever offense Shanahan is calling, it's just not working. And last week, I mean, this past game, like, did you really think
your backup quarterback,
the quarterback is going to perform as well as Brock Purdy? You know, Brock Purdy he's not having his best year this season, and I think we all admit that. Offensive line hasn't been as good. He's running the ball a lot more, which is not good. They're just not the same team. And I don't know. I think the writing is on the wall that you're probably blowing some of this up. You know, Deebo Samuel and Bosa off the 49ers is huge. However, what could you get in return?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's very rare that NFL teams trade player for player. It's usually, you know, second, third, fourth picks. You know, it's usually something along those lines. So what can you get for Deebo? You're probably looking at least a second, maybe a couple seconds. I think last week Vince had mentioned, you know, a first. I unless you're trading both of them in a package deal, I don't really think you're getting a first. I think a couple seconds might be something ideal, a second and maybe a fourth. Now, if you package them together, which I don't know why the 49ers would do that.
I don't think a team financially could do that.
I don't think so. Yeah.
The cap would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, but I agree with you. I think you got to move on from Bosa in the retrospect that what is his war, right? We talk about this in baseball all the time. You know, what's his wins over replacement? Is he really producing at a higher number this year to say that him on and off the field is that much of a difference? Clearly, he makes a difference in the sense that they got to double team him. You know, he's not getting his sack numbers that he'd always get. But there's some factors involved. You know, Hargrave is not there. You know, he's out for the whole season. So the defensive line has had to rotate through injuries this whole season. In fact, the middle linebacker, you know, their safety help, it's always had some kind of issues this season. So there's some underlining factors that could contribute as to why Bosa isn't being able to produce. Maybe the defensive schemes that they can't call, which they usually do high over the top safety, you know, comes down and blows up in between. Middle linebacker blitzes off the side, something they do. So maybe the personnel package isn't there to help him shine, but you're still
I could see something
paid.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the standings now. If the season ended right now, the 49ers would be 17th overall in the draft. I could see something with Cincinnati or even Cleveland where you do trade Bosa, or even Detroit. If you were to somehow work a deal with Cincinnati or Cleveland, you're in the top 10. And then with your draft pick, could you move up and get another piece, or do you just stand pat? And I think Bosa will get you a first round pick.
I think so.
I think he's getting you at least a first round pick. A couple years ago, he's probably giving you 2 or 3 first round picks. I think you're not getting that now. I think you're getting like maybe a 1, a 3, a 4, you know, some throw in picks like that. I think you could get a 1 right now for Bosa.
Right.
I think Debo, you're probably, because he's on the wrong side. You know, he's like this wide back thing. We've talked about it. You know, everybody's talked about his ability to run the ball. He's not the best route runner. He's really great in the yards after the catch, yards after contact. And that's another stat that the 49ers, we knew him as the Yak brothers. You know, that's not really happening. They're like dead last in Yak. So they're just not the same team. And you don't know what's going to happen with McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey is still a star player. But is he going to be able to play enough games this season and then into the future to keep them relevant? I think the window is, as long as you have the quarterback, your window is slightly open.
Sure.
Can you rebuild the wide receiver room, the offensive line room? Can you rebuild that to stay competitive and become a Super Bowl contender again? I think you can. I think the 49ers can. Look at Kansas City. They've been doing this for the most part the past couple years without really a wide receiver. Kelsey is not the same tight end that he used to be. He still makes big plays. But it's not the same weapons that you remember from the past.
Sure.
Right? It's hard to say that you could be the Chiefs when you can't beat them. You can't get over that hump. And they're going for a 3-peat. So that's a tough comparison. But I'm saying it's possible to stay competitive without the legit wide receiver number 1. I think you can fill guys, especially in a offensive scheme like Shanahan's. But you have the quarterback, and that's why I say you might have to deal with getting rid of some big-time players because your team needs to be deeper. This team is just not very deep anymore, and they're aging. And it's showing. So I think that's hey, what do we know? What do I know? I'm just an idiot on a podcast. So they're just not very deep right now. They're just not very dynamic. It's, you know, maybe the offensive has gone stale. I don't know. They're not executing well. Top to bottom, head coaching, it's not good enough. Special teams, it's a wreck. You know? So
well, on that note, I mean, we might as well jump into it here. I didn't watch the game, so you'll have to fill me in here. But the Broncos took it to your Raiders here, 29-19, and Bo Nix was a little bird out there because he was chirping. So you tell me what was happening here.
One, I don't really think he's going to be that good, honestly. I know he's probably going to be rookie of the year or close. You know, somebody. You know, if he doesn't win it, he's probably going to be in second.
Yeah.
But I'm really not all that impressed with what he's done. I really don't think the Broncos are going to go anywhere. They kicked the Raiders' butts. You know, the Raiders aren't a very good football team right now, and I mean, I don't really. Nothing is working. This is the second year you fired the offensive coordinator. You got this rookie head coach. He's really in his first season. You know, Antonio Pierce, he took over last season. He had to fire the offensive coordinator, the offensive line coach. Nothing has been really good, which has then put a tremendous amount of pressure on the defense. So now the defense is on the field way too much. So the defense coming into the season was something of a unit of strength.
Yeah.
And I think now, like, you can't really rely on it because they're just on the field too much.
Do you move Max Crosby or do you find more pieces to get around him? Because you're clearly in a rebuild. So are you moving for draft capital or are you trying to build around him?
It's the same question as the 49ers, right? Like, do you move off of, because if Bosa gets you a 1, Max Crosby is definitely giving you more than a 1. And it's not to say that he's better than Bosa or this or that. He's been available. Max Crosby's been available. He wanted to play this year, and the Raiders held him out to protect himself from himself. But I guarantee you, if the Raiders were above 500 or actually competitive, and that would have changed, playoff positioning or put you in a playoff game, I think Max Crosby plays in the games that he was injured. He was ready to go, but do you want to sacrifice your one asset for this season? I don't know. If you're the general manager of the Raiders, I mean, I think you would have to entertain trading Max Crosby. I wouldn't want to.
Sure.
Because he's like the only superstar that you have. And I mean, we could talk about Brock Bowers, but you don't know what he's going to be. It's only one season, and he's having a hell of a rookie season, but you don't know what he's going to be beyond. Right now, you're already, if the season ended right now, you got the number 2 overall pick. Jacksonville's in the 1 spot. Is Jacksonville going to move off of Trevor Lawrence and take a quarterback, or are they going to try to run it back for one more year? They just paid him. So at number 2, you're looking pretty good that you're going to get one of the 2 quarterbacks. The Giants right behind you, you got to think they're going to take a quarterback. Then New England, I'm assuming they're going to stick with Drake May for at least another year or 2. So the draft board is in your favor as far as getting a quarterback
as of right now.
So I think if you end up in the top 3, you're getting Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or homie from Wisconsin. I'm not very high on him.
So that also, I'm in a group chat with some other friends, and I seem to be the lone wolf in this situation here, but I don't feel that Shedeur is a good fit for the Raiders. Obviously, your ownership loves him, but it seems like to me that comes with the media circus. And do you want that with a team that's already trying to rebuild? I mean, and you're not to influence your opinion here, but how are you feeling that Shedeur would be a great fit for your team?
I've been on the Cam Ward train. So I know the Miami Hurricanes has had a pretty big loss where they didn't get it done. They gave it up. And Cam Ward didn't play his best game. But when I watched Cam Ward this season, and when I went back and watched some of his tape from his previous colleges, he's in command of the offense.
Yeah.
And he's telling people where to go, what to do, how to do this. And he has proven game after game after game. This is his 3rd school. Every game he's getting better, and he commands the offense. He's a passer first who has the capability of running. To me, he reminds me a lot of Anthony Richardson, but a better passer, not a better thrower, a better passer. Anthony Richardson has a fucking bazooka on the side of his arm. On the side, his arm is a bazooka. He could put that ball. He could throw it. It's like Jamarcus Russell. Remember Jamarcus Russell could throw the football field?
Maybe we don't compare a potential Raiders quarterback to Jamarcus Russell.
Hey, you kind of have to, though. But remember that arm strength? But it did no good when you're not accurate or you have no touch. What I see from Cam Ward is the touch, is the ability to put the ball anywhere, and then also the ability to command an offense. Shedeur Sanders, I think, athletically is probably one of the most gifted quarterbacks coming out of college right now or in the past few years. He reminds me of somebody that could be similar to somebody like Jaden Daniels over in Washington.
Sure.
But I don't see the ability to pass the ball at the same level. And I am worried about some of the antics. I know we've talked about it off air. We've shared videos about it off air, about every little thing that doesn't go right with him. His brother getting in an argument with the ball boy from the opposing team.
Yeah.
The circus with his dad. And I get it. His dad's a Hall of Famer. His dad their family knows more football than I'll ever know. It's pure and point blank and simple. They're a football family. Dion is a Hall of Famer. I'm just worried about everything that comes with Shedeur Sanders. And we talked about Caleb Williams, USC, going to Chicago, and the maturity. I kind of put Shedeur in the same thing because I've seen stuff coming from him on the field where you're caving, you're giving in. It didn't go your way, so you're mentally defeated. And I don't see that with Cam Ward. I see a leader. I see a guy controlling the offense and putting the ball where it needs to be. I don't see that with Shedeur. However, I would not be surprised if Cam Ward is off the board and the Raiders somehow Shedeur Sanders fell to them at 2 or 3 or 4 or wherever it may be. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders took Sanders. That's not my pick. But if it did happen, of course I want the kid to succeed. Of course
Sure.
I want to be wrong. I don't see it. I don't see him being as good of a passer as Jaden Daniels. And I definitely don't think he's going to be better than Cam Ward out the gate.
Sure.
I think out the gate right now, if the Raiders want to win and not get rid of Max Crosby and not fully rebuild this thing, I think Cam Ward is the quarterback that you can start day one and you will be a competent, competitive football team with the right coordinator and blah, 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 blah. Everything, a lot of things have to go your way. But if you look at Washington, who's the offensive coordinator? They went and got an OC. Who's the head coach? Dan Quinn is a capable head coach. Things kind of fizzled out over there in Atlanta. But when they were good, who was the offensive coordinator for Atlanta? Who was the quarterback? They were a competent, competitive football team. And I think he took his medicine. He went to Dallas. Look at the Dallas defense. That defense was ferocious. It's not the same defense right now. They're still pretty good. But Dan Quinn is a really good coach. He got an offensive coordinator, paired him up with a highly talented quarterback. The Raiders would need to do the same things. All that said, my money is still on Cam Ward being the best quarterback to win immediately, short-term and long-term. I think Shedeur Sanders could be really good because of the athletic ability and the pedigree that he comes from. But I don't think it's instant. I think you're looking at the traditional progression of year 2, year 3, year 4, as him being a really good quarterback in the NFL. Because as you know, the game is different right now. College, you can rely on athletic ability and run around and do. You don't really get to do that in the NFL. What Mahomes does, running around and buying time and do that, only he does that on a consistent level.
I agree.
Or even Jalen Hurts. I'll throw. He hasn't gotten over the hump, but as soon as as soon as Jalen Hurts gets over the hump, he's in that realm. But to keep a play going and throw a guy off your back and then throw it 80 yards down the field, very rare.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, there's not very few quarterbacks who could do that. Maybe possibly Buffalo and Jared Allen and whatnot, and obviously, I'd say there's. Well, I hate to say this, but Mahomes is number one, and then there's a lot of right under him tier quarterbacks, right? So we'll see. Maybe Cam Ward could be one of those quarterbacks for you guys, and I think the scary thing is if the Raiders find themselves into 2 more wins. Then they put themselves in a position where they might have to trade Crosby in order to improve their draft stock. Yeah. So I think the chances of losing more games is probably more beneficial in terms of keeping guys that you would like to keep to not improve at the quarterback position. So, but that being said here, we are going to jump into the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. They had one hell of a Sunday night game. The Eagles put an ass whooping onto the Rams here. I'll tell you, man, it looks good, man. They've done something for 7 weeks now that I think is just their MO. Like you watch a lot of Eagles games and it's very close at halftime. It could be like 10-7 or 3-3, right? But it always seems like in a boxing term, the Eagles are just throwing jabs out in the early rounds, right? We're just trying to fill you out, trying to figure out what are you going to do today? What's your kind of offense today? Like what's your defense looking like today? And in the second half, the Eagles just turn it on. It's like a completely different team. So to name our podcast here, 225, that is how many yards Saquon Barkley had in last night's game. He scores. He does 2 70-yard touchdown runs. On the second one, which is his all-time record for himself, he accidentally gave the football away to some fans in LA. So if anybody in LA has that football, please Saquon would like to buy it back from you. It's just a complete team. I mean, Jalen Hurts is starting to look like he's figuring things out here. He knows when to run. You know, it's not it. The offense doesn't look stagnant like it looked like before the bye or even going into the last season. So I'm loving everything we have going on here. You know, the Cowboys did us a favor and beat the Washington Commanders. So we now have a three-game lead into our division this week, which will be a short week for Baltimore, and we get to play them. I'm really excited for that game.
I find it amazing that the Eagles are just so dumb to pay Jalen Hurts to hand it off to a running back. That's just insane.
It's crazy. Yeah, let's bring that up. I mean, Mara essentially releases Daniel Jones. Ouch. I would not want to be a Giants fan right now. And then Sunday night you watch your former running back have an all-time record for himself at 221 yards. So here's to you, Giants fans, because it's a rough season for you. I don't know what to tell you.
It's amazing to me that, a lot of teams, right? The Raiders did it themselves. You had Josh Jacobs. You're going into a season like this is the Giants, the Raiders. You're going into a season with quarterbacks that are unproven.
Yes.
Okay, Daniel Jones had one season that he flashed. They got to the playoffs. Okay, wow, he might be good. But then you're going to run it back without a running back, without a running game. And the Raiders did the same thing. You're going into the season with Minshew and O'Connell, and you don't bring back Josh Jacobs. You have all the cap space in the world. Fuck it. Pay it for the 1 year, because a quarterback or an unproven quarterback, whatever, their best friend is a good running game. And what have you shown to do? Both teams, you can't run the damn ball. You can't run the ball. So you just let go of a Pro Bowl running back. You let go of Saquon Barkley to the Eagles.
Who looks like he found the fountain of youth, by the way. I mean, leaping over guys backwards. It's
went
insane.
to a team with an offensive line and a quarterback and wide receivers and tight. You went to a competent football team.
It's true, which is why I'm really excited for next week, man. I mean, basically, Henry and Saquon are throwing haymakers to try and hold the rushing yardage lead for the season right now. And it looks like, given how the defense is holding up, Derrick Henry might come back and take this again in first place. So I'm enjoying every aspect of this. I'm here for the ride, man. I mean, I'd say that the coming weeks, we've got some good challenging teams coming up. And then we also have some dinkers. You know, we play the Cowboys one more time. We play the Redskins. I keep saying Redskins. We play the Commanders one more time. And then we also, I know, right? And then we also get to play the Panthers. So we have a favorable matchup going into the season. And yeah, to your point, Jalen Hurts, just one more hurdle. That's it. And it's probably going to be the Chiefs again. We has to hurdle. And bring it on. That's all I got to say, man. Like
right now in closing of the conferences, Philly's number 2 at 9-2 and Detroit's number 1 at 10-1. And then over in the AFC is Kansas City 10-1 and Buffalo 9-2. And then Pittsburgh at 8-3 in the number 3 spot. So, I mean, the Eagles are looking really good. That's probably, I'm assuming that it's probably the NFC championship game right there is probably Lions Eagles. You never know what's going to happen, but it's those have been the two best teams obviously in the NFC, but I would Kansas City obviously. Buffalo, I know their record is really good, but I don't know. I'm just not convinced that they're gonna get past the Chiefs. So
what also looks like the Dolphins have kind of woken up here too in the last few games now that Tua's back. But it all hinges on not Tua, you know. So can he stay on the field? That's the biggest question. So I'm just saying, hey, they're not out of it. They're only 2 games out from a wild card spot.
Yeah. So is Indianapolis.
That's true. But that's a different quarterback situation.
Yeah, it is. So, I hear your point.
You know, I would say also too in the National Football League, and then in the NFC, I'm hoping that the Vikings just, you know, just throw body punches to the Lions. Let's just let them. They get to see each other one more time. Let's hope that that's turned into something. The Packers, they're a formidable team. We just saw what they just did to the 49ers. So that NFC North is tough. It reminds me of the NFC East last season, where we had like 4 teams damn near fighting for a playoff position. So,
I could see the Eagles having to play this out like with their starters all the way to the end of the season, if they're in contention to try to get the number 1 seed. Because you're definitely going to want that. Is next week Ravens, week after Panthers, Steelers, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. So you definitely don't want to drop a game against the Commanders, Cowboys, or Giants, since there's playoff implications, but also the tiebreakers with the Lions. So as always, the NFL is going to come down to the wire and keep us on our toes.
Yeah, that's exactly how the commission wants it. So, all right, guys, I think it's time we move our butts over to the hardwood. Tim, if you'd be so kind, for the NBA score here for the Warriors, who are playing tonight. They play in about an hour here, but let's get to the recap here. The Warriors take the L on Monday, 102-99. That was a lot of turnovers, man. It's quite a bit.
Ouch.
They had like 9 turnovers in like the first quarter alone. So missed free throws. We're talking like you made half of them, you win the game. So, and this seems to be a trend, man. Like, I don't know what it is with the Warriors, but missing free throws, I don't know if they get enough shots up in practice on those. I don't know what you have to do.
Yeah,
to
what's
be better
going
at
on
that.
with that? That's
It's crazy. Like,
it's
you got
really
guys,
weird when you got like Curry's the all-time leader
yeah,
in free throws, and yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, Kuminga, I didn't realize how bad he's been at the line. I thought
he's
he
shooting
would
like 60%,
yeah, and he's usually like
high
72,
70s.
73, something like
Yeah.
that, mid 70s. So I think it'll average out, but that needs to happen sooner than later.
Yeah, you should, at the end of any shoot around that you do, at least get some shots with the free throw line. You don't even have to move.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the let's see here, who did they lose to? 104-94. That's so small.
So that was San Antonio. So to finish out the week here, they get the win against Atlanta, 120-97. They get the tournament win against New Orleans here, 112-108. And on the back-to-back, they were up 20 and they lost to San Antonio, 104-94. So
that was a terrible second half.
Yeah.
I think we watched it on a delay.
Yeah, and then we watched the halftime, and I told you they lost, and you looked at the score and you go, "You're telling me they lost this game?" Like, yeah, they lost this game.
To it, and it was just even though crisis occurred against San Antonio, they're still leading the West at 12-4, and then Oklahoma City at 12-4. So I guess they own some tiebreaker there since they won the head-to-head so far.
They had the tiebreaker on OKC.
Yeah, I think they only played one game so far.
Correct.
In the head-to-head. So they had a couple losses that were really ugly or disappointing, I should say. But I think overall they're a deeper team. They're playing fast, and I think they just got a good mix of players, and it's a resurgence of Curry. He's been found the fountain of youth, or never lost it. I don't know. But it's just the energy that the Warriors bring every night. Defensively, they're back in the top 3, top 4 defensively now. The past couple of years when they weren't as competitive, it seemed like their defense really fallen off. And now they're back, and I think that Jerry Stackhouse as your coach, you can kind of see him getting on these guys. So, that I think the coaching and I think Draymond has been better than I expected.
His 3-point shot is definitely coming around.
I think defensively he's staying good. The 3, getting better at the 3 is really good, but I think like also the whatever leadership, that bad mojo from years past and the Jordan Poole stuff, it sounds like they're doing a pretty good job of like keeping that type of energy away from the team and away from the locker room. It seems like they got a really good mix right now. So I'm just really enjoying this wave because I did not expect them to be 12-4 at this point.
I agree.
I thought they would be somewhere in the 5 or 6 seed, 11-7, 9-6, something of like that nature.
Yeah.
So I'm just pleasantly surprised. Just keep doing your thing, guys.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got. I am curious about the game tonight because they're playing against Brooklyn. Okay, and the reason why I'm curious is because uh, they're what's his name? The small forward that's always
Ben
hurt. Always
Simmons?
Ben Simmons. His free agent or his agency has been saying all season long that he's back. He's gonna shoot the ball more. He's gonna do this and that. I haven't watched a single Brooklyn Nets game, but I will watch tonight, and I'm gonna watch very intently on Simmons because I don't believe it. I don't believe for a second that he has changed his ways. Zebras don't lose their stripes. All right. Wednesday, as we were talking about with OKC, they do play them again. This is in Golden State this time, and then Saturday they make their way down to the desert here and go play the Phoenix Suns here. One thing to note here, DeAnthony Melton is out for the season with an ACL injury. So there's talks about trading him. I didn't know you could trade injured players, so I had to look it up myself. Yes, you can trade injured players instead of taking the injury exempt money payment to try and get another player. And the reason why the Warriors want to do this is because if they take the injury money, it's still not enough for them to be able to sign a player of worth value because of the second apron of what they use to get all of this deep bench that you see on the roster right now. So it makes sense for them to try and trade Melton and then use that trade to get a player that could be like the 13th, 14th man on any NBA team's roster. So very unfortunate with Melton, unfortunately. But hey, next man up, right? So that's what they all say, right? So
yeah, and I would imagine once you get past Christmas and into January, you're probably shortening up your bench. You're probably every month or so you're probably shrinking down a guy.
sure.
It's just going to get tighter and tighter because these games become, October, November game is just as important as a February game, but as the season goes on, traditionally the benches get shorter when you have a team like the Warriors where they're running 10 guys, 11 guys out there, whatever it is. But shit, man, let these young guys get their run because you never, any minute saved on the veterans allows them to run a little longer in the playoffs. So
I think there's also a benefit too. I mean, if you get these guys that shine that no team has really kept an eye on, that could be a potential trade piece. You know what I mean? Like there's some talks that the Bulls are trying to move on from Levine or Vucevic, and so getting a big man, I mean, that's something we always talked about. Like I love, Trace Jackson Davis, but and Kevon Looney, but to get another big quality big man like that can move the rock around and be able to shoot like that. Unfortunately, Looney is not a shooter. Neither is Trace Jackson Davis, but Vucevic is a shooter. So maybe that's something that the Warriors explore and look into. It's a possibility, but I love the ideas of tinkering a team,
Well, Milwaukee sucks. They might want to trade their center.
Yeah, I think Giannis and Brook Lopez are going to be there for a while. So I don't think that those guys are moved on quite so soon here. I don't even know if I'd want to take Brook Lopez. You know what I mean? Like maybe I did 2 years ago, but maybe I don't want him now. I haven't heard much about him. Like, what's he doing?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's on the wrong side of 30 as well, too, unfortunately. So, but that's why they play. We got another month and a half here until we start talking about trade talks here. So actually, we got about a month here until trade talks start ramping up here. So Christmas time usually means packages for Warriors. I mean, for NBA teams. So it's usually what that comes down here to it. So we are going to jump to the ice here. And Tim, if you don't mind, put us up here. The Sharkies. They had a season here. A week here, I should say. I got my win of the week. Sam, did you get your win of the? I don't think you got your win of the week here.
Vince and I both picked Saturday.
I got the overtime win against Detroit. Something in my bones tell me this is the one here. And Macklin celebrating gets the game-winning goal in overtime. William Eklund had 2 goals. Tyler Toffoli and Luke Cunnin also chip in here for a 5-4 overtime win. 16 out of 20 saves, an 800% save from Blackwood. I mean, the guy's been amazing. He's literally been just goaling on his head here. So I'll take that. We do go into Wednesday against Dallas and take the L there 5-2. And then we also lose here to St. Louis in a shootout 3-2 on Thursday. That was Askarov's debut. Unfortunately, he makes a bonehead decision of trying to dump the pass at the behind the net and then gives it right to St. Louis, and they dump it right into the goal there. So the big one, the one that you and I watched together here, was the Buffalo game on Saturday, which happened to be your guys' win of the week. Vince was at that game. It was the Joe Thornton jersey retirement game. Game looked good, man. It looked solid through up 2 periods. You and I were kind of, chit-chatting and
hopeful.
Yeah, we were screaming at the TV when we saw something that was, could be a potential thing there.
On the bus.
Fell off in the third there. We lose 4-2, unfortunately, on that one there. But, hey, you know what? Macklin Celebrini looked good again. At this point, it's not a shock that he looks exactly like the number 1 player. That's exactly what we expected out of him. And he almost had 3 goals that game, man. He wanted it with Thornton being his roommate, so.
I mean, there's that one where he reacted like how, and it was just an amazing,
amazing
save. Like bounced, and then the guy caught it,
backwards,
fell, like it fell, and he's like twisting and grabbing the puck. So it's in. They're 6-12. They're almost last in every statistical
category,
but I said this about the NFL a couple weeks ago, is like when you have a young team, especially a young quarterback, losing looks a lot different because you're like, damn, that quarterback flashed in that one quarter, or on these 4 or 5 plays, like they were competitive, right? We're just a player or 2 away. And that's what it feels like with the Sharks, that you're seeing the flashes of Celebrini, of Smith. Eklund has been really good. Granlund has been really good. There's been a lot of players that have been really good, but they're a young team. And a lot of these almosts are going to be goals. And you talked about Askarov. He was I think 2 months in a row, he was the goalie of the month or something like that.
Yeah, for the Miners.
So he's been Miners' top goalie. There's no guarantees in life. There's no guarantees in anything. But I think by the end of the year, he's probably taken a majority of the starts at goalie. And he's showing extreme promise. And there's a bunch of other guys in the Miners that are showing a lot of promise. So I think, like, right now, I know the wins aren't happening like some people have hoped. I think for our show, we've been pretty honest about, like, hey, don't expect a lot of wins right now. Expect a lot of competitive losses that hurt, but it's next year and beyond. It's that third year that you're really looking for that exponential growth. I think they could be really good, man. Given injuries, no career ending injuries, things like that, you have a shot to be really good. They have a lot of talent in the system. We've talked about this at the beginning of the year when Vince was on the show, that next year or even the year beyond, you're going to have a system so deep that it's going to allow you to make trades and bring in another superstar if, for whatever reason, these guys don't work out, or you just need another guy. Clearly they need a superstar defenseman. Like, that's like their defense is, there's a lot of plays given up on defense, but they have opportunity. They got the cap room. They have the capital. They're going to have a good draft pick this year, and they're going to keep adding to this pen of young talent. The future is bright. So I know the wins aren't there right now, but I'm extremely optimistic right now.
Papa G's in the chat here, and I just want to, kind of reference some things here. I know we're going to circle back here, but I apologize. I had asked him a question earlier if he would trade Bosa, and he said not in the short term. He said check his QB pressures this year. The sacks are down, but the pressures are there. So I just want to give you a shout out. I was listening to your chat there. Just got a little sidetracked there. I just think in the long term of everything, we still got young guys that haven't even seen the ice that we drafted 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So there's so much more to come with this team. And hell, maybe we don't see them. Maybe they become a trade piece so we can get something to compete because we're that close to the doorstep in like 2 years. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of what ifs in this situation with this team, and that's honestly the best part about jumping into the Sharks if you haven't now, because there's so much young talent, so much what if scenarios, what if situations, and who knows, you could potentially be knocking on playoff doors next year or 2 years down the road,
right,
continuously year after year after that. So, and I think the Sharks have proven that they're capable of doing that, given the fact that they, damn near went to the playoffs 13 years in a row until they missed one, right? So it's possible. But that being said, let's get into the fun parts that I love, the little mini game we can do here. The win of the week. So the Sharks play tonight, and I'll give you this one if you want it. The LA Kings. On Wednesday, they play the Ottawa Senators. On Friday, which will be a back-to-back little baseball series, kind of, they play in San Jose against the Seattle Kraken. And then on Saturday, they go up to Seattle to play the Kraken. So I'll give you the floor as you. You are looking at the teams that are playing this week. What would be your win of the week? Vince went with Ottawa.
Ottawa. Well, they kind of stink. They're close to the bottom. Let me check Seattle real quick. Seattle kind of stinks too. They're 500. You know what? I'm gonna take at home versus Seattle.
Okay, at home against Seattle. Well, you know what? I was also going to pick that one. So you and I are not going to gain any ground if you and I lose. So Sam and me. Currently, as the standings go, Sam, you are in second with 2 wins this year. I am in first with 3 wins, and loser is Vince in last place with 1 win. And I hope he's watching.
He's like, you son of a bitch.
He's all, I'm so mad at you, while he's on the teacups.
Matterhorn or Mickey's Runaway, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Ride, or the new one.
No. He's upset while he's on the Small World.
Yeah.
And I would be too.
cursing on Small World.
Oh man. So that was it for us this week. Unless Sam, you got anything you want to add for the good of the show here?
No, that's it, man. I guess one little thought that I had was this whole stadium thing with the A's and the Rays. It seems like it has taken a very nasty turn. The St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay said we were going to help you build the stadium, but nah, we're going to walk that back. So now the Rays are going to be playing in a minor league system, a minor league stadium that they got to rent from the Yankees. And they're renting a AAA stadium for like $15 million or something. I have the article. The price is around there. It's millions.
Right.
And the A's are paying nothing for Sacramento. Even we were upset when the city of Oakland countered the A's and said they wanted $20 million a year for the stadium, because you knew the A's weren't going to do it. However, they were paying $1 million a year for decades. So it's just to show the contrast of the A's have literally been paying nothing in rent and fielding a shit team, trading away star players, never re-signing anybody, never bring anybody in of real value. You ran it like a terrible organization and you had no bills. So where did all of the money go? Where did all the revenue sharing money go? And then you see the same thing now playing out in Tampa Bay. But the difference with Tampa Bay is they've actually paid a couple of stars and they're paying rent on a minor league stadium. Baseball as a whole, this is why I'm really not interested. I'm really not interested in buying any merch. You guys know I got all this baseball card and football card crap behind me. Stop buying baseball cards. I'm not interested in MLB. I'm not interested in watching any other teams. I'm not interested in getting a new team. that's MLB. Already have a new baseball team. It's on the other side of the planet. It's on the other side of the world in a different league. I'm not interested in MLB, and it's because of stuff like this. It's what they did to the A's. It's what they're doing to Tampa Bay. I don't want Tampa Bay to end up in Oakland. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of everything being a nickel and dime, and I'm tired of the cliches. It's business. It's just business. I'm just sick and tired of it because the fans, the ones who actually pay for the product and the ones who actually care about the product, are always left with the shitty end of the stick. And I'm tired of it. So I'm not going to support it. Any team, any franchise, not interested. I haven't consumed MLB in a couple of years now, other than trying to stay on top of what's going on with the A's. But this year would be the first time that I can't wait for them to get out. I just don't be here. I don't want to hear anything about it. You're gone. Move. Go to Vegas. Go wherever the hell. I don't care. As an Oakland citizen, I'm focused on what's going on here. And that you know me. You know I've been on top of this stadium thing that's going on here in Oakland. So that's where my energy is at. And I know other people's energy is there too. So it's just crazy that MLB is they're just shooting themselves in the foot, you know.
Agreed. Yeah.
I just don't get it. I mean, I do get it. It's just money, money, money. So
yeah, we'll have to I'm curious. I'm gonna do some research this week, but I want to see who was the worst MLB commissioner of all time. You know what I mean? Like, and
I still think it's Bud Selig.
I think so too, but we're getting a run for our money here. Yeah. So
Manfred's going to make it close. I think he announced he's going to be retiring in like a couple of years.
Not soon enough.
3 or 4 years or 5 years or something like that. But I think when it's all said and done, Manfred could be worse when his career is done. Depending on what happens with the A's, depending on what happened with the Rays, he could be the worst. What makes Bud Selig the worst is Bud Selig has always hated the city of Oakland. Like, that's the thing that people don't really want to like. It's not just he allowed Lou Wolf, his college dorm room buddy, to just buy the team when they didn't even have the best offer. If it's all about money, why did you give the team to Lou Wolf where other people had money on the table, more money? So it's things like that Bud Selig did. But before he owned the Brewers, he wanted to buy the A's and move them. And he wasn't allowed to buy the A's. The Haas family got him. And then he ended up with the Brewers. And then he became the commissioner. But Bud Selig has always crapped on the city of Oakland. Always have crapped on the A's and the city of Oakland. Remember, he announced this blue ribbon committee. You want to bury something in politics? You want to bury something? Blue ribbon committee. Would you want something to go away and you just want we're working on it? Blue ribbon committee. That's just the oldest trick in the political book. And that, as soon as that happened, I knew there was never going to be a stadium in Oakland under Bud Selig. Then you get Manfred. And then there's a whole list of nonsense there. I just think the next commissioner will probably be even worse than Manfred, because it's no longer a sport for fans. It's no longer America's pastime. It's America's corporate greed.
Yeah.
This is what it's about. It's all about corporate greed. No other businesses do governments get involved in for stadiums. Like Apple, if Apple wants to open a freaking lab in your city or your town, they're not giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to build a brick and mortar store. No. You want to open a store? That's on you. You want to open a restaurant? That's on you. There are things that government does to help stimulate business, but it's not the government. It's not the citizens' job to pay for the construction project of the stadium and then pay for the team and then buy all the merch and the season tickets and all this crap. It's too much, man. Look at the inflation and all this other stuff. Like, people have families, like they're going to choose groceries over going to your fucking minor league stadium ballpark or whatever the hell, whatever team you're talking about. But it's just the cost to go to a baseball game is ridiculous. The cost to have food at any baseball game is overpriced. And then you have half the league that doesn't even want to field a competitive team. We were at bar a couple weeks ago. We met I was talking to that Red Sox fan, and he was giving me the lowdown on the Red Sox. You have this franchise that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the Red Sox refuse to pay on their team right now. They refuse to do anything. And I've said this before, there are more John Fishers than there are the Steinbrenners in a sport, than the Joe Lacobs. Baseball, I would say 2/3 are more like John Fisher with their hand out and really don't want to spend on the team. They're not interested in winning. They're just interested that the profit is forever going up. This is their personal ATM. They don't care. They don't care about World Series. If they did, all of these teams would be all in after free agents, and the Angels never would have traded Shohei.
Never.
If you really cared about winning, you wouldn't trade him. You have a generational talent and you wasted it. So,
well, I agree with you. Pops agrees with you. He said agreed, Sam. He still thinks Bud is the worst, but Boyfriend is very close, and I think we're all in that same sentiment here. But guys, it's about that time. Yep. It's time to close the door, close your tabs, close the bar, because you are listening to the SVT Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell to get alerts when we go live. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at SVT Sports Pod, and slide into our DMs. We would love to interact with all you beautiful people. Later, guys.
Later.